Commander Zara Velkis floated through the crystal corridors of Zentara Prime, her long blue tentacles gliding smoothly against the walls. The massive space station hung like a jewel in the void, home to the Galactic Council that had kept peace for 20,000 years. Through the transparent walls, she could see hundreds of ships from 7 different species coming and going in perfect harmony. The morning briefing had been routine until the alert came through. Zara's communication device buzzed with an urgent message that made her hearts skip a beat. A signal had been detected from the dark sector, the forbidden region of space that no one was allowed to enter. She rushed to the command center where Dr. Corvin Thale was already working at his analysis station. The old Zentari scientist's purple skin had turned pale as he studied the incoming data. His 4 eyes darted between different screens, each showing impossible readings. "Commander, this signal is like nothing we have seen in 20,000 years, Corvin said, his voice trembling. "The mathematical patterns match records from the old archives, but they have been changed somehow, made stronger." Zara looked at the main display where waves of energy pulsed in complex patterns. The signal repeated every 37 seconds, broadcasting from deep within the dark sector. According to their best instruments, nothing should exist in that region of space except empty void and dangerous radiation. "What does it say?" Zara asked. Corvin touched a control, and ancient human words filled the air. The translation appeared. On screen in glowing letters, "We remember, we return, we reclaim." The words sent ice through Zara's veins. Every child in the galaxy learned about the human war in school, though most of the details were kept classified. 20,000 years ago, humans had nearly destroyed everything with weapons so terrible that 7 species had to unite just to stop them. The war ended with a treaty that sent humanity into exile beyond the galaxy's edge. "Sir, I need to contact the Council immediately," Zara said to her communication officer. Within hours, the 7 leaders of the Galactic Council gathered in the Great Meeting Chamber. Elder Nisara of the Zentari sat at the center table, her ancient face showing worry lines that had not been there that morning. Around her sat the representatives of the other 6 species that ruled the galaxy. Vorthak Prime Minister Kristax. Diamond Body sparkled as she spoke in her musical tone. "The signal cannot be human. Our records show they destroyed themselves fighting each other after the exile." "The patterns match exactly," said General Scarix of the reptilian Skarn military. His yellow eyes studied the data with practiced attention. "This is human technology, but it has been improved beyond anything we remember." The insect-like Cliche representative clicked his mandibles nervously. "My species maintains the agricultural worlds near the dark sector. Our farmers have reported strange dreams recently. Dreams of Earth, the human homeworld that we converted to farmland after the war." This news made everyone uncomfortable. The aquatic Marani trade minister's gills fluttered with anxiety. "Our shipping lanes avoid that region completely. Even our bravest captains refuse contracts that go near the old human territory." The energy being known as Luxan Bright Voice hummed with concern. "Our communication networks have detected quantum echoes from that sector for the past year. We assumed it was natural background radiation." Elder Nisara raised one hand for silence. The chamber fell quiet as the ancient leader prepared to speak. At 3,000 years old, she was the only being present who had been alive during the human war, though she had been just a child then. "I must tell you something that has been classified for 20 millennia, she began. "The humans were not destroyed in their exile. They were sent away because we could not destroy them. The war ended not because we won, but because we made a deal!" The chamber erupted in shocked voices. General Scarix's tail lashed with anger. "You told us they were eliminated as a threat." "We told you they were removed as a threat," Nisara corrected. "The treaty we signed with them promised eternal separation. They would stay beyond the galactic edge, and we would never contact them." Both sides agreed to complete silence until the end of time. Dr. Corvin pulled up historical files that most beings had never seen. Images of the human war filled the chamber screens, planets cracked in half by human weapons, entire star systems turned into weapons, ships that could destroy suns. The humans had technology we could barely understand, Nisara continued. They could manipulate matter at the atomic level. They built weapons that used gravity itself as ammunition. Most terrifying of all, they seemed to have no fear of death in battle. The Verdani plant being, representing environmental systems, rustled her leaves with worry. Our species has maintained Earth as a memorial garden for 20,000 years. We built beautiful parks over the ruins of human cities. If they return, they will want their homeworld back. The treaty was very clear, said Prime Minister Christak. No contact between human space and Confederation space. If this signal is real, then they have broken that agreement. General Scarrick stood and paced around the chamber, his heavy footsteps echoing. Our military forces are designed for peacekeeping, not warfare. We have not fought a real war in 20,000 years. Our soldiers practice parade formations, not battle tactics. How many humans survived the exile? Asked the Morani trade. Minister Elder Nisara's tentacles drooped with the weight of old secrets. We never knew. They had colonies throughout the galaxy before the war. Billions of humans lived on thousands of worlds. We have no idea how many ships escaped to the dark sector, the Luxan energy being flickered with nervous light. 20,000 years is enough time for any species to multiply greatly. If they started with millions of survivors, they could now number in the trillions. Dr. Corvin studied the signal data more carefully. Commander Zara, this transmission is not coming from one source. I am detecting at least 47 different origin points, all broadcasting the same message. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 47 sources meant 47 ships, or possibly 47 different human colonies. After 20,000 years of silence, humanity was speaking with many voices. There is something else, Corvin added quietly. The signal is not just a message. It contains star charts showing every human world that existed before the war. It shows Earth, Mars, the Colonial Union territories, everything. And according to these charts, they know exactly where each world is now and which of our species currently lives there. Elder Nisara closed her eyes and made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Send a response to the human signal. Tell them that the Confederation Council wishes to open diplomatic communications. Perhaps we can resolve this peacefully. And, if they refuse to talk? General Scarix asked. The old Zentari looked at each council member in turn. Then we pray that 20,000 years of peace have not made us too weak to survive what comes next. As the council members prepared to send their message into the dark sector, none of them noticed the small changes happening throughout the galaxy. Human archaeological sites were experiencing strange energy readings. Memorial gardens built over human ruins were showing signs of quantum disturbance. And in the deepest archives of each species, classified files about human technology were being accessed by unknown sources. The age of silence was ending, and something that had been waiting for 20,000 years was finally coming home. The neutral space station had been designed for trade negotiations and minor diplomatic meetings. Now it hosted the most important gathering in galactic history. Representatives from every major civilization sat around a massive circular table, still trying to understand how completely their understanding of warfare had been proven wrong. President Susan Marshall entered the conference room with only 2 advisors. She was a small woman by human standards with gray hair and kind eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Her simple business attire stood out among the elaborate ceremonial robes and military uniforms worn by the alien delegates. High Counselor Thex Vorin watched her carefully. This human leader commanded a military force that had just defeated the combined fleets of 3 empires without losing a single ship. yet she carried herself like a teacher or a doctor rather than a conqueror. Thank you all for agreeing to this meeting, President Marshall said as she took her seat. I know recent events have been difficult for everyone to understand. War Master Grix Thule leaned forward in his chair, his mechanical breathing apparatus hissing softly. Half of his fleet was either captured or disabled, floating dead in space under human guard. His pride as a military commander had been completely shattered. President Marshall, your forces demonstrated capabilities that should not exist. We need to understand what we are dealing with. Of course. But first, let me ask you a question. How long have your civilizations been at war with each other? The alien leaders exchanged glances. Thex Vorin spoke first. The Zephyrian Empire has been expanding for over 800 years. Conflict with neighboring species has been constant. The Hegemony Alliance was formed 600 years ago to resist Zephyrian expansion, added Chancellor Vex Kiran, the Hegemony representative. We have been fighting defensive wars ever since. And the Stellar Federation has been caught between both powers for 4 centuries, said Admiral Zorth Prime, speaking through a translation device. We fight to maintain our independence. President Marshall nodded sadly. 800 years of the same conflicts, the same territories changing hands, the same weapons becoming slightly more powerful, the same tactics being used over and over again. Dr. Carl Johnson, the human cultural specialist, activated a holographic display showing galactic history over the past millennium. The patterns were clear. Endless cycles of war, conquest, rebellion, and revenge between the same civilizations. We spent 50 years studying your conflicts, Dr. Johnson explained. Every battle, every strategic decision, every technological advancement. We realized that you were trapped in a pattern that could never lead to lasting peace. So you decided to conquer us all? War Master Grix Thule asked bitterly. No, President Marshall replied firmly. We decided to break the pattern. Ambassador Claire Davis, who had been quietly observing from the side of the room, stepped forward. Every human military doctrine is built around a single principle: end conflicts as quickly as possible with the minimum loss of life. Your weapons are designed to kill, Thex Vorin pointed out. Our weapons are designed to disable, Fleet Admiral Troy Richardson corrected. Every ship in your combined fleet could have been destroyed in the first minute of combat. Instead, we captured most of them intact with their crews unharmed. War Master Grix Thule studied the human admiral with new understanding. You could have killed us all. We could have. But that would have just created new conflicts. Your peoples would have sought revenge. The cycle would have continued. President Marshall stood and walked to the large viewport that showed the space. Outside the station, hundreds of ships from all 4 civilizations floated nearby, but for the first time in centuries, none of them had their weapons powered. We offer you a choice, she said without turning around. Join us in creating something new, or remain isolated in your current territories. What kind of something new? Asked Chancellor Vex Kiran. A galactic federation based on mutual defense rather than conquest, Ambassador Davis explained. We share our defensive technologies with all members. In return, all members agree to resolve conflicts through negotiation rather than warfare. And if we refuse? President Marshall turned back to face the alien leaders. Then you continue as you were. We will not interfere in your conflicts, but we will also not allow them to spread beyond your current borders. You would enforce galactic borders? Thex Vorin asked. We would maintain galactic peace, Fleet Admiral Richardson clarified. Any species that attacks another Federation member would face the combined defensive capabilities of all member worlds. Dr. Johnson activated another display showing human colonies throughout the galaxy. There were far more than any of the alien species had realized. For the past 2 centuries, humanity has been quietly establishing peaceful settlements in unclaimed systems, he explained. We now have over 300 colonies providing resources, intelligence, and strategic positioning throughout the Galaxy. War Master Grix Thule stared at the display in shock. You have been surrounding us for 200 years. We have been positioning ourselves to maintain peace for 200 years, President Marshall corrected. Every human colony is equipped with defensive systems capable of protecting not just our settlements, but neighboring star systems as well. The implications were staggering. Humanity had created a network of defensive positions that could protect or isolate any civilization in the galaxy. They had the power to enforce peace whether the established powers agreed or not. What do you want from us? Thex Vorin asked quietly. We want you to help us build something better, President Marshall replied. Your civilizations have knowledge, culture, and perspectives that humanity lacks. Together we could explore beyond this galaxy. Together we could solve problems that no single species could handle alone. And if we join this federation, what happens to our independence? You keep it. Each species maintains its own government, its own culture, its own way of life. The Federation only intervenes to prevent wars between members. Chancellor Vex Kiran leaned back in her chair, considering the offer. You are asking us to trust you with our security. We are asking you to trust each other with your security, Ambassador Davis corrected. Humanity will provide the technology and training, but each species will defend its own territory. The difference is that you will be defending against external threats, not each other. Admiral Zorth Prime spoke through his translator. What external threats? Dr. Johnson smiled for the first time during the meeting. There are other galaxies out there. Some of them contain civilizations that make our recent conflict look like a minor disagreement. The room fell silent as the alien leaders absorbed this information. They had been so focused on fighting each other that they had never considered threats from beyond their own galaxy. You have encountered other galactic civilizations? War Master Grix Thule asked. Our long-range sensors have detected artificial signals from several nearby galaxies, Fleet Admiral Richardson confirmed. Some of them appear to be expanding outward. We estimate first contact within the next 50 to 100 years. President Marshall returned to her seat. Gentlemen, ladies, the choice is simple. We can work together to prepare for whatever is coming, or we can continue fighting each other until something bigger arrives to conquer us all. High Counselor Thex Vorin was the first to speak. On behalf of the Zephyrian Empire, I accept membership in this galactic federation. One by one, the other leaders followed his example. Within an hour, the longest period of warfare in galactic history had officially ended. 6 months later, the first joint exploration mission launched toward the neighboring Andromeda galaxy. The crew included humans, Zephyrians, hegemony citizens, and Stellar Federation members working together on a ship that combined the best technology from all 4 civilizations. War Master Grix Thule, now serving as the Federation's joint defense coordinator, watched the ship disappear into hyperspace. For the first time in his long military career, he was preparing for peace instead of war. The galaxy had finally learned to stop fighting itself and start reaching for the stars. War Master Grix Thule had commanded the combined fleets of 3 galactic empires only twice before in his long career. Both times had been against extinction-level threats that required the greatest military response possible. Now, as he stood on the bridge of his massive command ship, he faced the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 312 vessels filled the space around the neutral station where the emergency alliance had been formed. Zephyrian battlecruisers floated alongside hegemony dreadnoughts and Stellar Federation carriers. Ships that had been shooting at each other just months ago now worked together against a common enemy. Status report. Grix Thule ordered his communications. Officer, all fleet commanders report ready for combat, War Master. The humans have been given our ultimatum and have 47 hours to respond. The ultimatum was simple. Humanity would surrender all military vessels, submit to inspection of their technology, and accept occupation of their territory by Alliance forces. The alternative was total war. High Counselor Thex Vorin had argued, against such harsh terms, but he had been outvoted by the other Alliance leaders. They believed that overwhelming force would convince the humans to surrender without a fight. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from human space," announced the communications officer. "Put it through." The main screen activated, showing a human male in what appeared to be a military uniform. He looked to be middle-aged, with short gray hair and calm eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "This is Fleet Admiral Troy Richardson of the United Human Defense Force. I am responding to your ultimatum on behalf of the human colonial government." Grix Thule stepped forward, his forearms crossed in a gesture of authority that was recognized by all three Alliance species. "Admiral Richardson, I am War Master Grix Thule, Supreme Commander of the Galactic Alliance Fleet. You have seen our strength. 300 ships representing the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Surrender now, and your people will be treated with dignity." The human admiral seemed to consider this for a moment. "War Master, I appreciate your concern for our people's dignity. However, we cannot accept your terms." "Then you choose war?" "We choose to defend ourselves." "War Master, are you certain this is the path you want to take? Once this begins, it cannot be undone." Grix Thule felt his combat instincts surge. The human's calm tone was exactly what he expected from a species about to be crushed. Fear often made inferior commanders try to sound confident right up until the moment of defeat. "Admiral, you have 47 ships against our 300. Mathematics is not a matter of opinion. You're right about the numbers, War Master, but mathematics involves more than just counting ships." Before Grix Thule could respond, his sensor officer called out from across the bridge. "Sir, we have new contacts. 47 vessels emerging from hyperspace at grid reference 77 Alpha. The human fleet?" "Yes, sir. They're taking up formation at maximum weapons range." Grix Thule moved to the tactical display and studied the human formation. Their ships were arranged in a pattern he had never seen before, spread across 3 dimensions, instead of the traditional flat battle line used by all known civilizations. "War Master," his science advisor said urgently, "the human ships are generating energy readings that exceed our understanding. Each vessel appears to contain power systems equivalent to our largest battle stations." "That's impossible. Ships that size cannot generate that much energy." "Sir, we said the same thing about their weapons, their shields, and their propulsion systems. We may need to reconsider what we think is possible." Captain Nina Foster sat at her intelligence station, aboard the human flagship UES Liberty, watching the Alliance fleet through their advanced sensor systems. The enemy formation was exactly what their tactical computers had predicted: a massive wall of ships designed to overwhelm opponents through sheer firepower. "Admiral, the Alliance fleet is moving to surround us," she reported to Fleet Admiral Richardson. "Expected. Commander Taylor, are our electronic warfare systems ready?" Commander Ben Taylor nodded from his position at the tactical console. "All ships report ready, sir. We can jam their communications, targeting systems, and navigation computers simultaneously." "Excellent. Begin Phase 1. The human fleet suddenly split apart, each ship moving in a different direction at speeds that should have been impossible. Within seconds, the tight formation had become a 3-dimensional cloud of vessels that seemed to be everywhere at once. On the Alliance command, "Ship!" Chaos erupted across the bridge. "Sir, the human ships are moving at impossible velocities. They're jamming our communications. I can't reach any of our fleet commanders. Targeting systems are down. All weapon locks have been lost." Grix Thule watched in growing horror as his carefully planned battle formation fell apart. His ships were trying to track targets that moved faster than their computers could calculate. Weapons designed to destroy large, slow-moving targets were useless against enemies that could change direction instantly. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Sir, they appear to be using controlled gravity manipulation for propulsion. They're not fighting inertia, they're controlling it." "And the jamming?" "Unlike anything we've ever encountered, they're not Just blocking our signals, they're rewriting them. Our computers think they're receiving valid orders, but the orders are coming from the humans. The human ships began their attack. Instead of the massive energy weapons or kinetic projectiles the Alliance expected, they deployed swarms of what looked like tiny metallic spheres. Each sphere was no larger than a cargo container, but they moved with the same impossible speed as the human ships. "What are those things?" Grix Thule asked. "Unknown, sir. They're too small to be fighters, too numerous to be missiles." The spheres reached the Alliance fleet and began attaching themselves to individual ships. Instead of exploding, they seemed to merge with the hull plating and disappear. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the fleet. The spheres are some kind of boarding device. They're cutting through hull armor and deploying mechanical systems inside our ships." "Boarding devices? Impossible. Nothing that small could carry a boarding party." "Sir, they're not carrying troops. They're carrying machines, automated systems, that are taking control of our ship functions." Grix Thule realized with growing dread that the humans weren't trying to destroy his fleet. They were trying to capture it. The small spheres were somehow seizing control of Alliance vessels from the inside, turning their own weapons against them. "All ships, emergency evacuation of critical systems. Abandon automated controls." "Sir, it's too late. 17 ships have already been compromised. Their weapons are now targeting our own vessels. The Alliance fleet found itself fighting a war on two fronts, against the human ships attacking from outside and against their own vessels that had been turned into weapons by human technology." "War Master," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Richardson." "Put him through." The human admiral appeared on screen again, his expression unchanged despite the battle raging around them. "War Master Grix Thule, this is your final opportunity to surrender. Order your fleet to power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your crews will not be harmed. Never. We outnumber you 7-1. War Master, you outnumbered us 7-1 5 minutes ago. Check your tactical display." Grix Thule looked at his battle screen and felt his heart stop. Over half of his fleet was either disabled, destroyed, or under human control. The human ships continued to move through his formation like predators among prey, systematically neutralizing any vessel that tried to fight back. How is this possible? "War Master, your civilizations have been fighting the same way for 1,000 years. We've been preparing for something different." High Counselor Thex Vorin had ruled the Zephyrian Empire for 43 years. In that time, he had overseen the conquest of 12 star systems, the defeat of 6 different alien species, and the expansion of Zephyrian territory to its largest extent in history. Nothing in his long experience had prepared him for Admiral Grix Thule's report. "Let me understand this correctly," Thex Vorin said, his deep voice echoing in the council chamber. "A single alien vessel destroyed 5 ships from your patrol fleet?" Admiral Grix Thule stood at attention in the center of the vast room, still wearing his damaged uniform from the battle 3 days earlier. His normally confident bearing had been replaced by something that looked almost like fear. "Yes, High Counselor. 1 ship supported by approximately 40 autonomous drones. And these humans, as they call themselves, used weapons that our science division claims are impossible. The physics involved should not work, sir. But I saw the results with my own eyes." Intelligence Director Quinn Lash stepped forward from her position at the side of the chamber. She was the Empire's top expert on alien technology and military capabilities. Her analysis would determine whether this was a genuine threat or simply combat stress affecting a veteran officer. "Admiral, you claim their projectile weapons fired solid matter at nearly the speed of light. Do you understand the energy requirements for such a feat?" "I understand that it happened, Director. Whatever the energy requirements, they met them." Quinn Lash consulted her datapad. "Our analysis of the wreckage confirms your report. The damage patterns are consistent with kinetic impacts at the velocities you described. We also found traces of elements that don't appear in our periodic tables. A murmur of concern rippled through the assembled counselors. Unknown elements suggested technology beyond their current understanding of science itself. What do we know? About their home territory? Asked Thex Vorin. Very little, sir, Quinlash admitted. I've ordered our intelligence network to investigate, but initial reports are troubling. She activated the chamber's main display, showing a three-dimensional map of known galactic civilizations. Red dots marked Zephyrian territory, blue showed their allies, and yellow indicated neutral or unknown regions. We've discovered that humans have been making contact with minor species throughout this sector for approximately 50 years. Most of these contacts were disguised as trade missions. Trade for what? Information, sir. Technical specifications, star charts, military capabilities of major powers. They've been studying us. Admiral Crixtal shifted uncomfortably. During the battle, their captain knew our tactical doctrines. She predicted our movements before we made them. There's more, Quinlash continued. Our sources report human ships in at least 12 different star systems. Until now, we classified them as independent merchants or explorers from various minor civilizations. You mean they've been spying on us for decades? Not just spying, High Counselor. Learning. Every contact they made, every trade agreement they signed, every technical manual they acquired, it was all part of a larger intelligence-gathering operation. Thex Vorin felt a cold certainty settling in his chest. The humans hadn't stumbled into galactic politics by accident. They had been preparing for this moment for generations. How many ships do they have? Unknown, sir. But our long-range sensors have detected unusual energy signatures in over 30 systems. If even half of those are human vessels, they could have a fleet larger than ours, potentially much larger. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Zephyrian Empire had built its power on superior military technology and aggressive expansion. If another species possessed better weapons and had been secretly studying their tactics for decades, the balance of galactic power could shift overnight. Sir, Admiral Crixtal said quietly, there's something else. After the battle, the human captain offered to provide medical assistance to our survivors. They treated our wounded and released all prisoners unharmed. What's unusual about that? Sir, they had detailed medical knowledge of Zephyrian physiology. They knew exactly how to treat injuries to our species. That kind of biological information takes years to acquire. Quinlash nodded grimly. We've confirmed that human medical teams have been quietly providing aid to various species throughout the Outer Rim. They've been building a comprehensive database of alien biology under the guise of humanitarian missions. Humanitarian missions, Thex Vorin repeated slowly. They've been positioning themselves as helpful neighbors while preparing for war. Not war, sir, Admiral Crixtal corrected. Defense. Everything about their tactics suggested they wanted to end the fight quickly with minimal casualties. They could have destroyed my entire fleet in the first minute of combat. Then why didn't they? I believe they wanted to send a message, sir, to demonstrate their capabilities without unnecessary killing. Before Thex Vorin could respond, an aide hurried into the chamber and whispered something urgent in his ear. The High Counselor's expression grew even more serious. It seems the humans have requested a formal diplomatic meeting. Their ambassador is en route to our capital system. How many ships in her escort? Asked Admiral Crixtal. 3 vessels. All register as impossible on our sensors. The chamber erupted in worried conversations as counselors tried to process this new development. A human diplomatic mission, escorted by ships that defied their understanding of technology, was already on its way to the heart of their empire. Sir, Quinlash said urgently, we need to contact our allies immediately. The Hegemony Alliance and the Stellar Federation must be warned about this new threat. Do it. Emergency conference, highest priority. As the intelligence director hurried away to establish communications, Thex Voran turned back to Admiral Crix Tal. Admiral, you've fought against these humans. In your professional opinion, what are our chances in a full-scale war? Crix Tal was quiet for a long moment, considering his words carefully. High Counselor, in a conventional war using standard tactics, we would lose. Completely. And in an unconventional war. Sir, I don't think we understand what an unconventional war against humans would look like. Everything they did was beyond our experience. 2 days later, the human diplomatic vessel arrived at the edge of Zephyrian space. Ambassador Claire Davis transmitted a simple message to the imperial capital. She was prepared to discuss peaceful coexistence between their species, but she hoped the Zephyrian leadership understood that the alternative would be unfortunate for galactic stability. Her 3 escort ships maintained position just outside the capital system's defense perimeter. Every sensor array in the Zephyrian fleet was focused on them, trying to understand their capabilities. The readings made no sense. The human vessels seemed to exist in a state of controlled energy that was barely contained within their hulls. Sir, reported the defense commander, if those ships released their stored energy all at once, they could sterilize the entire system. Thex Voran stared at the tactical displays showing the human vessels. 3 ships. 3 ships that could potentially destroy everything his empire had built over centuries of conquest. Send a message to Ambassador Davis, he said quietly. Tell her we accept her request for diplomatic talks. And our allies, sir? Tell them we may need to reconsider our understanding of galactic politics. As he spoke, Thex Voran realized that the age of Zephyrian expansion might be ending. A new power had emerged from the unknown regions of space, and they had been preparing for this moment longer than anyone had imagined. The question now was whether the established galactic powers could adapt to this new reality, or whether they would choose to fight a war they could not possibly win. The first human weapon hit Crix Tal's escort ship like a hammer striking glass. There was no energy beam, no visible projectile, just a sudden flash, and the smaller vessel simply came apart. The destroyer broke into pieces so cleanly that it looked like someone had taken it apart bolt by bolt. What kind of weapon was that? Crix Tal shouted over the alarms that were now blaring throughout his bridge. Dr. Yithmar, his science officer, was frantically working at her station. Her normally steady hands shook as she tried to make sense of the readings. Sir, I'm detecting kinetic impacts at significant fractions of light speed. They're firing solid projectiles, but at velocities that should be impossible to achieve. Impossible. How? The energy required to accelerate matter to those speeds would require the output of a small star, Admiral. No ship that size could generate that much power. Another escort ship exploded as a second invisible projectile tore through its hull. This time, Crix Tal saw the impact more clearly. Whatever the humans were firing moved so fast that it appeared as just a brief streak of light. The projectile didn't just penetrate the ship's armor, it punched completely through the vessel and continued into space beyond. Evasive maneuvers! All ships scatter formation! The Zephyrian fleet began to spread out, following combat doctrine that had served them well for centuries. In normal space battles, spreading your ships made it harder for enemies to target multiple vessels at once. Against the humans, it seemed to make no difference. The human ship divided itself. Crix Tal blinked. Hard, certain his eyes were playing tricks on him. But the sensor displays confirmed what he was seeing. The single human vessel had somehow released dozens of smaller objects that moved with the same impossible speed and agility as the main ship. Are those fighters? Asked Velnosh. Too small, Dr. Yithmar replied, her voice tight with disbelief. They're about the size of cargo pods, but they're maneuvering independently. Each one is broadcasting its own tactical signals. The human drones, for lack of a better word, spread throughout the battlefield with perfect coordination. They moved like a flock of birds, each unit aware of where all the others were positioned. When one drone moved to attack a Zephyrian ship, the others automatically adjusted their positions to maintain optimal formation. Crixtal had never seen artificial intelligence operate with such sophistication. Most military computers could barely handle basic navigation, but these human machines seemed to think and plan like living beings. "Sir, the drones are jamming our targeting systems," reported the weapons officer. "Every time we lock onto one, target, something interferes with our sensors. Switch to manual targeting." "I've tried, sir. They're also jamming our communications between ships. Each vessel is fighting alone." The Zephyrian formation fell apart as the human drones systematically attacked their weakest ships first. The escort vessels, designed to provide support fire, found themselves overwhelmed by enemies that moved too fast to track and hit too hard to survive. Lieutenant Commander Jake Murphy sat at his tactical station aboard the UES Defiance, watching the battle unfold on his displays. The alien ships were fighting exactly as their computer models had predicted. After decades of studying galactic warfare patterns, human military analysts had identified the standard tactics used by most species. "Recommend focusing fire on their command ship," Murphy said to Captain Brooks. "Force their admiral to make decisions faster than his training allows." "Agreed." "Chief Walsh, how are our power levels?" Chief Engineer Ryan Walsh checked his readings from the engineering deck below. "Fusion reactors are running at 20% capacity, ma'am. Antimatter reserves are still at full. We could keep this up for days if needed." Captain Brooks nodded. The human advantage wasn't just superior technology, it was superior energy generation. While the aliens relied on older fusion systems that limited their ships' capabilities, human vessels used controlled antimatter reactions that provided almost unlimited power. "Lieutenant Carter, prepare the main gun. Single shot, low power setting. Target their flagship's weapon systems only." Lieutenant Alex Carter acknowledged the order and began charging the ship's primary weapon. Unlike the kinetic projectiles they had been using, this was a directed energy system that could precisely disable enemy ships without destroying them. On the Zephyrian flagship, Dr. Yithmar watched her sensors in growing horror. "Admiral, they're charging some kind of energy weapon. Power levels are climbing beyond anything in our databases." "How much beyond?" "Sir, if these readings are correct, that weapon contains more energy than our entire fleet combined." Crixtal felt cold fear creeping into his chest. His career had been built on understanding enemy capabilities and responding with overwhelming force. Against the humans, his standard tactics were not just ineffective, they were making the situation worse. "Signal all ships to retreat. Emergency jump to hyperspace." "Sir, 3 more escort ships are gone. The drones are targeting our hyperspace generators." "What?" Velnosh confirmed the nightmare. "The human machines are using precise strikes to disable our faster-than-light systems. They're not trying to destroy us, they're trying to trap us here." The human drones moved with surgical precision, each one targeting specific systems on the Zephyrian vessels. They avoided the crew quarters, life support, and communication systems. Instead, they focused on weapons, engines, and hyperspace drives. It was becoming clear that the humans wanted prisoners, not casualties. "Admiral," Dr. Yithmar called out, "the human ship is hailing us again. Put them through." Captain Brooks's voice came through the speakers, still calm despite the destruction surrounding them. "Admiral Crixtal, this is your final opportunity to surrender. Order your remaining ships to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded. Never! The Zephyrian Empire does not surrender to primitive aliens." "Admiral, respectfully, we're not primitive. You've been fighting the same wars, with the same tactics for over 1,000 years. We've been preparing for different kinds of wars." "What do you mean?" "Every species in this galaxy follows the same pattern. Build bigger ships, put bigger guns on them, and attack in straight lines. You've never had to fight an enemy that thinks differently." On his tactical display, Crixtal could see that only his flagship and 1 destroyer remained operational. The human drones had systematically disabled or destroyed 4 ships in less than 10 minutes. His crew was staring at their instruments, in shock, unable to comprehend how thoroughly they had been outmatched. "How long have you been watching us?" he asked quietly. "Long enough to understand your strengths and weaknesses, Admiral. Long enough to develop countermeasures for every weapon system in your fleet. Long enough to realize that this war didn't have to happen." Dr. Yithmar looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy buildups throughout human space. There are more ships out there. Many more." The communication channel stayed open as Captain Brooks delivered her final message. "Admiral, you attacked a single exploration vessel and lost your entire fleet. We have 300 ships in this sector alone. I suggest you consider the wisdom of continuing this fight." Krixtal stared at the human ship, which had somehow managed to destroy his fleet without taking any visible damage. Everything he thought he knew about warfare had been proven wrong in less than 15 minutes. "Captain Brooks," he said slowly, "what exactly do you want from us?" "We want peace, Admiral. The question is whether you're ready to discuss it."